Welcome to the Sports Talk Podcast with Alec Pecado. Tonight's video is on my NL East predictions for the 2024 fantasy, the 2024 MLB season. Let's get started. My standings prediction for this year for the NL East is that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to finish in first place. And they're going to win 100 games and only lose 74. And they're going to be the National League East division champs yet again. And second is the Atlanta Braves at 98. At 98 and 84. I like what the Phillies and Braves have done this offseason to improve, whether it be the bullpen for the Phillies or for the Braves getting a couple more outfielders, like getting Jared Kelenic from Seattle. I really like that move, and you might hear about Jared Kelenic in another section of the show in a couple minutes. And third place is the New York Mets. Now, with the Mets, I have them winning 90 games. So I have three teams in this division winning at least 90 games. Again, these are just predictions. Throughout the season, these predictions could be true or they could completely be wrong. That's why they're predictions. But the Mets, I like what they've done this offseason, the amount of money they've spent. But the only problem I have with them is, can all their key players stay healthy? Senga's going to be out for a couple months. Tyler, as of recording this, Tyler McGill has won that fifth spot in the rotation for the Mets. If you were wondering who their fifth starter is going to be, it'll be Tyler McGill. But I do like where the Mets sit in terms of prospects, and you'll hear me talk about one of their prospects later on in the show. And fourth place is the Miami Marlins. Now, I have the Marlins going 82 and 80 this year and finishing fourth in the National League East. And I feel like that is the right spot for them, is fourth place. And again, I'd like to know what y'all think about my predictions in the comments down below. Tell me if you think these predictions are spot on, or if there's some stuff you would switch around. But back to the Marlins. I think the Marlins are going to have a good year this year. But the one issue is their ace, their innings eater, Sandy Alcantara, is not going to pitch at all this year. He will be out the entire season. That's why I was hesitant to put the Marlins in front of New York, in front of the Mets in the standings, is because they're going to have a bunch of young guys pitching. And one of them is going to be, it might be Yuri Perez, but he's going to be out for a couple weeks to start the season. And in last place is the Washington Nationals. Okay, I'm going to explain why. The Nationals are still in a rebuilding stage. I have them going 67 and 98 this year. I think they're making strides. They've got a bunch of good prospects that could either be up this year or next year. You're going to hear me talk about one of those prospects later on in the show in a little bit. But I do like the direction they're going in, and I like how they kept Davey Martinez as manager and then didn't fire him and get somebody else. Part 2, breakout players 2024 NL East predictions. Part 2, breakout players. So in this section, I have 2 guys from each NL East team that I think can possibly be a breakout candidate this year. And what my standards for somebody to be a breakout is, 1, they have to uptick in their batting average from last year, or their downsize their ERA, and they have to play at least 60 games at the position they play at. So, of course, we're going to start with the team that I have winning this division, the Philadelphia Phillies. Their first breakout candidate is Johan Rojas. And Phillies fans, please tell me if I'm not saying that right, because I appreciate the feedback from all my supporters on naming corrections and stuff. But with Johan Rojas, I think he's in for a breakout year because Harper's going to be at first base. You have Castellanos DHing, Marsh in center field, Schwarber in right, and I think Rojas is going to be at left, unless they signed another outfielder like maybe Christian Pache to platoon with Rojas. But I still see a big year for Johan Rojas, and that's going to consist of maybe, I'm going to say, a 298 average with 15 to 20 home runs and around 30 to 35 stolen bases with an on-base percentage of north of 800. My second breakout candidate for the Philadelphia Phillies this year is relief pitcher Orion Kerkering. If that name sounds familiar, he is a Florida kid. He went to college at the University of South Florida in Tampa. And I know a lot about him because that's right up my alley. That's right up my neck of the woods, is South Florida. This kid has some nasty breaking pitches. I think he's going to profile as a 7th, 8th inning guy behind. Maybe he's the closer because Kimbrel is gone. Maybe they use a Sir Anthony Dominguez, Jose Alvarado, Orion Kerkering in that order, or maybe it's flipped. Maybe it's Kerkering in the 7th, Dominguez, Alvarado 8th, Dominguez 9th. But I expect big things from Mr. Orion Kerkering this year. And I predict that his stats for the 2024 season will be, I'm going to go with a realistic. I could get crazy and say he's going to have it under a 1 ERA, under 1 whip, with over 80 strikeouts and just around 78 to 80 innings. But I'm going to be more realistic, and I'm going to say he's going to have at least a 2 ERA, low 2s ERA with a low 1s whip, with around 75 to 80 strikeouts and 30 to 40 walks, with a strikeout rate of 45 to 50% and a walk rate of 6%. And the next team is the Atlanta Braves. And you see 2 outfielders on here. The first one, I've been hearing from a lot of people within the Braves that I know a lot of Braves fans. And I've been hearing they really like Jared Kelenic. They think he's in for a huge year now that he's out of Seattle, where it was just a log jam in the outfield for playing time. And they really like him as the everyday left fielder for the Braves. And I like this. I like this fit for Kelnick as well. I really, really, really. I don't just like the fit for Kelnick. I give it a 10 out of 10. I think he's going to fit in perfect in Atlanta. And here's my breakout numbers for him. He has the wheels. I think he's going to be a 25 home run, 45 steal candidate. I think he has 28 home runs, so 25 plus home runs. And I think he gets 30. What's a nice round number? 35 steals. 35 to 40 steals. Maybe 50. Maybe 50 steals. Now we go to Michael Harris, his teammate in Atlanta. And Michael Harris, I think he's due for a breakout. In his third year, I looked at his batting average. It was 286 last year. I think he could get that up to 300 if he does one thing. And I think Braves fans will agree with me on this. I think if he cuts down on the strikeouts, he can have that batting average well over 300. And I like him to hit 305 this year with 30 home runs and 45 stolen bases. So the Braves get three guys, because I think Acuna is another guy that could go over 60 steals. Hint, hint. You may see Acuna in my predictions video for the entire MLB next week on opening day, the day before, 2 days before opening day. So that was the Braves. Now we get to the Mets, and it's two of their youngsters. The first one is Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty struggled miserably last year. But then they sent him, he got sent down to AAA, and he turned it around, came back up. He was hitting pretty well when he came back up. I think the one thing that's setting him back from a breakout, and I said the same thing about Kelnick, is strikeout rate. He swings at pitches that are way outside the zone that don't need to be swung at. If he cuts down on that, I think he is going to have a huge season. Huge. And when I say huge, I mean, I think he could hit 310, 315 with around 25 home runs, maybe 30, and 95 runs batted in, and maybe 10 to 15 stolen bases, on base percentage of 980. And then the second guy from the Braves, from the Mets, correction, that I think is in for a breakout year is catcher Francisco Alvarez. He, in my opinion, he was touching the surface last year of having a breakout. He was this close to completely breaking out. I think he completely breaks out this year. And hot take, I think he's one of the top 30 catchers in baseball, if not top 20, by the end of this season. Come back and clip this video if I'm right at the end of the season, Mets fans. And for Alvarez, I think a breakout season for him is 290 average with 25 to 30, with 25 home runs, maybe even 30, and 95 to 100 RBIs, on base percentage of 860, 865, and he cuts that strikeout rate way down, and he starts walking more. Now we got two more teams left in the NL East, And it is the Miami Marlins next. And their two breakout guys are Jake Burger, third baseman, and starting pitcher Braxton Garrett. So we're going to start with Jake Burger first. Burger bombs are back, but not in Chicago. Not in Chicago anymore, in Miami. And I think if Jake Burger, and this is the third time I've in this video, no, fourth. The fourth time I've said it in this video. Strikeout rate. If Burger cuts down his strikeout rate, I think he goes for a monster season. I could see 35 home runs, 102 RBIs, with a batting average of 320. With his walk rate being at 15%, and strikeout rate being at maybe 15 to 20%. So he walks just as much as he strikes out. Marlins fans would absolutely, they would be shivering in the corner for that. And then you've got Braxton Garrett. The Marlins are going to really need Braxton Garrett at the start of the season, because they will be without, like I said earlier, Sandy Alcantara for the whole season. They're going to be without Sixto Sanchez, Yuri Perez. That's three pitchers that they were expected. Well, okay, with Sixto, I don't know if they expected to have Sixto to start the year, but they expected to have him at some point this year. And maybe Max Meyer. But Max Meyer, it sounds like, is going to start the year in AAA. But for fantasy baseball purposes, if Max Meyer is on your waiver wire, pick him up and stash him. Because I bet you within the first 2 weeks of the season that Max Meyer, if he's shelving in AAA, he will get promoted. But back to Braxton Garrett. And the breakout with Braxton Garrett. That was my little tangent on the Marlins rotation. But Braxton Garrett, I think if he can have consistent command, I think that he is in for a really, really good season. And his breakout consists of I'm not going to get crazy here and say under 2 ERA. I think it's under 3.5. I think he goes maybe 315, 320 ERA with a whip of 180, 190, 115 strikeouts, and 70 or 80 walks. And he gets maybe around 10 to 15 wins. I would consider that a breakout. Let me know in the comments if you would consider that a breakout for Braxton Garrett. And finally, the Washington Nationals. Mackenzie Gore is their first breakout candidate for me. Starting pitcher. I liked the bits and pieces of good pitching I saw from Mackenzie Gore last year. The one thing he needs to work on is not his walks. Like Braxton Garrett, he needs to work on consistent command. And this is the word you're going to hear me say over the next couple minutes. Repeating the same delivery and command. Repeat. If he can do that, I think he's going to have a breakout season. And that consists of a low 3 ERA with a 180, 190 whip, maybe a below 2 whip, which is walks to hits, innings pitched. And I think he gets, guessing here, 185 strikeouts, maybe 200. And then the last one is and then Gore also gets probably 10 to 15 wins. CJ Abrams is the last breakout player in this video for the NL East. CJ Abrams. I really enjoyed watching CJ Abrams last year for the Nationals. I think he's another guy that the only issue he had last year, it wasn't health. He was healthy most of all, if not all the season. But strikeout rate. I think that's what drove him into a platoon at shortstop for a little bit, was his strikeout rate. If he can shut that strikeout rate in half, I think you can see a big time improvement from CJ Abrams, and I think he has a big time breakout season this year. 295 average, 25 home runs, 35 stolen bases. On base percentage of 870. And now the last part of this, of the NL East predictions, is the NL East predictions part 3, prospect watch. And I did these prospects I'm going to talk about. I also did a little write-up on them, so we're going to go over them first, and then we'll circle back around to the top, and I will give you my write-up on the prospect. So we're going to start with the Philadelphia Phillies. It is Mick Abel, ETA 2024. You've got from the Braves, a guy that saw a little bit of big league time last year, Dylan Dodd, ETA of 2024. Outfielder Drew Gilbert, MLB ETA, and that's the Mets. Outfielder Drew Gilbert, ETA 2024. Miami Marlins, left-handed pitcher Josh Simpson, ETA 2024. And the Washington Nationals, DJ Hers, left-handed pitcher 2024. So now we're going to circle back to the top, and we're going to go over to the Phillies. So Mick Abel, my write-up on him is his highest grade is his fastball, which on the scale that the MLB does their grading on is a 20/80 scale. His fastball grades out at 65. The average velo on his fastball sits at 96, but he can get it up to triple digits. He can occasionally hit 100 miles an hour. And his second highest grade is his slider, which is in the mid-80s. And the write-up I have on Mick Abel is short. He struggles with command, which that's not something you want to hear about from a prospect that's a pitcher. He struggles with command. From watching his film and reading what the scouts had to say, if he can fix that command, he can be a middle-of-the-rotation pitcher, and he could be very useful for the Phillies. So now we go to the Braves. Dylan Dodd. Like I said, he did have a little bit of major league experience. So Dylan Dodd's right up. His two highest graded pitches, his highest graded pitches is fastball, which tops out average velo at 92, which that's not particularly fast for a fastball. Normally a fastball sits in the high 90s, like 95, 96. Some guys throw 97, 98 with an occasional 100. And his control is the other thing. And I told you a minute ago what you were going to hear me say consistently is he repeatedly repeats delivery. He repeatedly repeats his delivery well. But he needs a higher arm. Here's the one thing they signaled out for Dylan Dodd is he needs a higher arm slot. He was getting, when he got called up last year, he was getting whacked around in the big leagues because he was throwing, his arm motion was to the side. If he can raise that arm motion a little bit, I think scouts think he could be a really good pitcher, and so do I. So now we go to the Mets. Drew Gilbert. Gilbert's top grade is his running and his arm. His running His feet, which is wheels, is a 55 out of 80 grade. And his arm is a 60. Running above average on the base paths, which means he's fast. His wheels serve him best in center field, which means they think he's going to be a center fielder. And from the film I've watched on him, I would say so to myself that he will be a center fielder. And the last two guys that I have my write-ups on, so we get the Miami Marlins left-handed pitcher Josh Simpson. His grade, his curveball is a 60 out of 80 on the scale, and it sits from 78 to 82 miles an hour. And then his fastball is a 55 out of 80 grade, and that sits 93 to 96. It could get up to 97 miles an hour. It peaks. That's where they say his fastball peaks, is at 97. Gets whiffs at a high rate. And his arm angle makes the ball go more down plane from what I have written down. Gets whiffs at high rate. Make arm angle downhill plane. Makes arm angle downhill plane. So, and I think Simpson might start the year with the Marlins since they've been having a lot of pitching injury issues. And DJ Hers is the last guy. Left-handed pitcher DJ Hers from the Washington Nationals. His highest grade is his two highest graded pitchers are his fastball and his slider. His fastball is 55 out of 80 on the 2080 scale, and it sits in the low 90s. Low 90s fastball with his slider sitting at 81 to 85 miles an hour. Gets late life on his heater, but can't land his upper 70s curveball for strikes repeatedly, which means he struggles with command on his curveball. That's why I didn't pick the curveball as one of his top things, as one of his top grades. But if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a thumbs up on it and turn on notifications and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I will have another video out tomorrow afternoon at 12 p.m. with my AL Central predictions for 2024. And then next week is the NL West and the AL West at some point next week. AL West and NL West are going to be in the same video. And then we have our complete MLB predictions on, I believe it's either Monday or Tuesday. It's Tuesday of next week, I believe. It's one of those 2 days. And then next Thursday, we have two videos. We have one at, I believe, 11 a.m. because we have some games that are starting at 1 o'clock on opening day. So we will have our review of the MLB schedule at 11 a.m. next Thursday, and next Thursday at 3 p.m. I will be streaming. I will be doing a live play-by-play of the Tampa Bay Rays Toronto Blue Jays games starting at 3 o'clock with the pregame show all the way up to first pitch at 4 o'clock. And from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock will be the stream. And just a programming note, if you see a video Saturday, yes, it is me. I will be interviewing. That is when my interview with North Florida men's basketball player Dorian James is happening. Is Saturday at 6 p.m. I did put a YouTube short up the other night explaining about that. And if you have any question, if you want to leave your questions, leave them down below in the comment section. That video. And I will take your questions that are down in the comments and I will put them on a piece of paper and I will ask Dorian those questions during the interview. If you want your question answered live during the interview, I recommend that you join the interview. But until the next video, this is the Sports Talk Podcast signing off. We will see you tomorrow afternoon at 12 o'clock. Have a great night.